Why? Because if something goes wrong, guess what? They get to blame somebody else. Then you also have that they love to be the victim. And the victim, they want you to be their savior. So if you feel responsible for saving them, they just sucked you in to what I call
how is everybody doing? How is everybody doing? Welcome back. Welcome back. This is episode 9 of the ShiftMakers podcast. Live, of course, from Color Command Creative Studio out here in Atlanta, Georgia. I am your host, L the Designer. And of course, like I just mentioned, this is episode 9 of the ShiftMakers podcast. I want to start things off by just offering up a thank you, offering up some appreciation, offering up, just some acknowledgement of some feedback that we've been getting over the past couple days, the past couple weeks, of course, regarding the show and our previous episodes. We definitely do appreciate that, of course, as we mentioned throughout every single one of our value segments. We definitely do appreciate that. And, we just want to continue to deliver y'all quality. So definitely keep, giving us those concerns, giving us those comments and giving us that feedback. Now, with all of that being said, just gonna tell y'all this is another solo episode. So, of course, this is gonna be another little 30 piece for your head. And let's get things rocking. So, today, I got a little special bag of, I guess you could just say some, of course, some clips, but a little special bag of knowledge for us today to kind of get into. And it's honestly something I've been wanting to do for a while now, but I just had to make sure that I got the right material before we really jumped into it. And I feel like today is that day. You dig? So the thing I really want us to touch on today is going to be victim mindset, victimhood mentality, and basically being a victim in a sense. Right. So I'll be honest, the thing that kind of influenced me to talk about this and to get into this bag really been, I guess you could say the past year, like the past year of events, especially like the past few weeks, the past few months of events that's, been going on within the Black community, of course. It's really been, I feel like, an attack on our mentality. Of course, like I always say, I take my little shots at the media being one of the main culprits attacking us. But I feel like they're trying to massage us into being victims at every turn, at every cost. I know I brought up a few examples, even when we have nothing to do with it. Like, say, when me and Rock was talking about the Capitol situation that happened on January 6th or whatever it was, basically. Most of the media was talking about when it initially happened. And most of the media was talking about how if it was Black people, we'd be slaughtered on the steps and we'd be slaughtered in the streets and we wouldn't even get to the doors of the Capitol. Again, trying to turn us into victims to get that into our minds and basically to have that shape our mindset. So with all that being said, to make a long story short, I really do want just to get into that today, So first thing first is we gonna talk about what are the 3 main factors of victim mentality? So what are the 3 main factors? I actually got this information from a website called healthline.com. And of course, I'm going to give some credit in the show notes. So if y'all want to check out the full article, the full web page, y'all go ahead on and do that. But of course, I'm going to be giving a little bit of a brief reading from that exact web page. So, of course, y'all bear with me. So the 3 main factors, right? First thing is bad things happen and will keep happening. So if you're a victim, this is how you feel. You feel like bad things will happen and will keep happening. And honestly, as I'm going through these 3, think about these three factors and ask yourself, is this how I feel on a normal basis? Is this how I feel on a weekly basis? Is this how I feel on a day-to-day basis, on a monthly basis for the last year now? Is this how I have been feeling? And if so, then maybe consider that you have been caught up or coerced or manipulated into being a victim. And it happens to the best of us. Honestly, to be quite honest with you, it's happened to me, especially last year, just by looking at all of the stuff that was, of course, happening to black men, people that look exactly like me. So it had me in the mindset of just being a victim, or when will I be a victim, or if or will I be a victim? Though, asking those type of questions, of course. So like I said, first is bad things. And this is a mindset, of course, that most victims have. Bad things will happen and will keep happening, even without any type of resource as to how those bad things will happen or what type of bad things will happen. No, you're just caught up in the thought process of bad things have happened before. So you're expecting that. You're expecting bad things, of course, to continue happening.
Huh. Okay.
Next, other people or circumstances are to blame. You're looking at, of course, other people and other circumstances, and you're only focused on how they affected you, not necessarily considering how you affected your own situation, or, of course, how you can better your own situation. So, again, you're looking to point the finger. You're looking to blame first before looking at yourself, or looking at basically accountability and responsibility, right? So, last and final factor is any efforts to create change will fail. So there's no point in even trying. I ain't gonna lie, just saying that shit out loud is crazy as hell, because I know so many people that's kind of caught up in that way of thinking. It's like you try and convince them that you need to try in order to at least have any type of success. And I don't want to say it falls on deaf ears, but for the most part, they're so caught up in any effort to create change will fail. So why should I even try? And once you have that mindset, the can't mentality, I can't, then it's going to be almost impossible for you to reach the full potential of your ambition. So any type of ambition, any type of dream, any type of why factor, why being, of course, why you're doing certain things that you may have, it's going to be impossible or very difficult for you to reach those, because you're basically convincing yourself subconsciously that you're going to fail. You're convincing yourself that you're going to fail. So you basically tell yourself, what's the point of me even putting in any effort, And the sooner we step up out of that, I feel like that, and by we, I mean, of course, the black community, the sooner we step up out of that, the sooner we can, of course, collaborate with each other, I feel like. And also we can actually make steps towards bettering certain things that we, of course, want to get better. So we have to make that effort in trying first. And it all depends on what we're talking about, of course. But yeah. So moving forward past the three factors. And of course, like I said, I do want y'all to evaluate yourself as we going through these different things within the victim mentality breakdown. Be asking yourself questions, be actually considering, does this apply to me? Because if it do, then you, like me and a whole lot of other people, will, of course, need to work on certain things. And of course, at the ShiftMakers, that's exactly what we try to do. We, of course, try to provide self-improvement along with development, along with the ability to think for yourself. So in order for you to think for yourself, you need to not think like a victim, of course.
That's true.
And with all of that being said, let's actually take a look at what does it look like when, of course, the victim mentality is in use, right? So referencing back to our Healthline website, let's just take a look at a few little things that tells us what the victim mentality looks like for the most part, right? So one main thing is avoiding responsibility, of course. When we avoid responsibility and have that lack of accountability, major indicator, right? We always making excuses. We looking to place blame elsewhere. We're not taking responsibility. of course, like we're reacting to life hurdles like it's not my fault. Those, different type of things and indicators, right? Another one, not seeking possible solutions. So, when we see and feel pain, we're caught up in that pain and we're not even thinking about, okay, how can we alleviate that pain, right? A sense of powerlessness. And that was actually that's a kind of a callback to one of our earlier factors when we basically were saying, bad things will happen and will keep happening. So basically you convince yourself into feeling powerless, right? And I mean, there's no reason for me to go further in depth in that. Negative talk and self-sabotage. Again, you're always telling yourself certain things. You're always telling yourself that you're a failure. You're always telling yourself that your bloodline is a failure. Your parents didn't achieve what like other parents around you. So you're thinking you are going to have that similar level of success, well, minimal success, I guess you could say. And you just basically getting the talk of negativity with yourself. You kind of get into self-sabotaging and, just everything bad always happens to me. I can't do anything about it. So why even try? No one cares about me. Nobody cares about how I feel. I deserve the bad things that happen to me because I just ain't shit. Those type of feelings, just, flat out self-sabotage, and replacing it with affirmations, of course, said out loud, positive affirmations is one of the easiest, simple, and really the most effective ways to create, of course, that habit, but to also break down that self-sabotaging mentality. Like creating that habit and telling yourself those things on a daily basis will literally reverse that self-sabotage. And it's 100% guaranteed, like 100%. Just got to do it. Just got to try it. Step out of that mentality. And there you go. Having, again, a lack of self-confidence is another indicator, right? Dealing with a lot of frustration, anger, resentment. People with that mindset may feel frustrated and angry at a world that seems to be against them. I know a lot of people like that. A lot of people feel like the world is against us as Black people, but also feel like the world is against them personally. Wow! They feel hopeless about their circumstances never changing. They're hurt when they believe no one else cares. They're resentful to people who seem happy, and successful because, of course, they may be creating excuses for themselves as to why they haven't received that success. So they resent those type of people. And we see a lot of that currently, like a lot of people talking bad on the rich because they have what they want. And I mean, they feel like there's no way for them to achieve that. They feel like there's no path line for them to achieve that. So, of course, they're resentful, right? And of course, that just leads to loneliness, isolation, depression, angry outbursts. So, I mean, we just, again, have to step out of that and really kind of realize where it comes from, right? So that kind of brings me to my next little point. Where do we feel like this victim mentality comes from? I know I just spoke on the media, of course, media pressing so many different things down our throats on, of course, with police brutality as one indicator and factor. Then, of course, you got people just saying how everything is racist, pretty much. Like I just heard the other day, math was racist. Like they're literally teaching in schools a different type of math again, because now they're trying to convince students that math is racist. That's right. 2 + 2 ain't 4. 2 + 2 is racist. So, it's, it's stuff like that literally leads and feeds victim mentality and, of course, that victim mindset. Then you got stuff like past trauma, of course, past trauma with parents, maybe past verbal abuse with parents, those type of things. Like your parents literally could make you not feel like shit. Well, make you feel like shit, I meant to say. So past trauma, of course, you got betrayal, maybe betrayal from a spouse, betrayal from a partner, betrayal from friends, again, betrayal from parents. Those type of things can make you feel like you're always a victim. And then one of the worst of all is manipulation, right? So, you got some people who just been manipulated before, or some people who manipulate others because they're victims. Like the victim is manipulating others, so they cling to being victims so they can continue to manipulate others. One of those scenarios being people who work the system all of the time, who manipulate the system all of the time, right? Manipulating others because they feel like they're victims. Some of them may be victims, but again, if you're caught in a victim mindset, it's impossible and almost hard for you. It's hard and almost impossible for you to step out of it, right? As we just discussed earlier. So, it is very pivotal and important for us to really be able to identify those things, be able to identify, like I was mentioning, say, like, for an example, that manipulation, right? So, I want to open up our first clip of the day with, of course, my good partners and friends at the Mo Facts podcast. And this is basically talking about victim psychology manipulation. Let me say that again. Victim psychology manipulation.
Segments of the Black church. This thing has been going around for a while now, and it's called emotional witchcraft. Emotional witchcraft.
So as they discuss emotional witchcraft, stay with me now, because of course, when we hear witchcraft, we think of religious purposes that term is used. But stay with me and actually listen to this breakdown, because it is very, very interesting of how these type of things tie in very seamlessly with the victim mentality and victim manipulation. So.
But the modern term for emotional witchcraft is victim psychology. Y'all need to write that down. If you look it up.
I believe he a preacher.
Victim psychology is a mindset of the modern self-centered person. But the spiritual understanding of emotional psychology is, victim psychology is emotional witchcraft. That means someone is using their emotions to control yours. Wow! You got what I'm saying? For we know witchcraft is control, basically. It's control. Y'all got that?
So his term, of course, of witchcraft is basically meaning control, right? So when people say spells and stuff, they're not talking about when you watch Shrek 2 and you saw potions and shit. Nah, that's not the type of spells we talking about. We literally talking about just controlling. So if you listen back to episode 1, Brainwash Me, when me and Rock was talking about, of course, how the media controls, they're basically casting spells in sense. And again, casting spells in our term, and of course Mo Facts actually broke down this a little bit better, is more so just trying to control someone emotionally and of course sometimes physically, having mind control, brainwashing in a sense. That's his perspective, of course, when he says casting spells and witchcraft and those type of things. Now, of course, he was saying victim psychology, the core of it is basically controlling someone with your emotions. So, of course, you being emotional and manipulating that person or the next person with your emotions, that is victim psychology.
Manipulation, intimidation, and domination. That's the way witchcraft operates. Witchcraft operates in manipulation, to trick, to intimidate.
Manipulation, to trick,
to scare and dominate.
Intimidation, to scare, and domination.
To force.
To force.
So emotional witchcraft is the intimidation, the manipulation, or the forcing of your emotions. You got what I'm saying? And you have to understand that this is how the modern person thinks.
Man, there's a lot of people under that kind of spell right now.
Yeah.
Big facts. And it is, of course, how the modern person thinks when, of course, you take a look at really a lot. It ain't even got to be black people. Hell, you can look at the whole COVID situation over the last year now. A lot of people is now caught in that mentality. And, you know, is very interesting to see how people know that once you are susceptible to emotional manipulation, they cling on to that, and it's used every single time. So just to give you a quick example, right? For instance, your mother, you may see your mom crying, right? So if you see your mom crying almost, let's just say 3 times a month, you see your mom crying 3 times a month, and you know, you're always wondering and asking mom, what's wrong this time? You know, what's going on? And if, you know, of course, it's a different answer every single time. And every single time after she tells you the answer, she's asking you to do something like, can you go to the store and do this? Or can you go get me this? Or can you, you know, do certain things like that? Or can you give me money to do this or whatever it may be? That's when the manipulation comes in, of course, because you are emotionally compromised, because you may have love for that individual, and that individual will see that compromise, that emotional compromise, and of course can have a lane to take advantage of it. And that is done, to be quite honest, a lot, not just in the Black community, but also done, of course, you know, just within, like I see it all of the time with white people, with really any race. Like, it don't even pertain to race. It's, you know, it really just have to do with the person and situation. And if you, as say a person who may get manipulated, if you're able to set proper boundaries, that is the key thing that a lot of people don't know how to do, and a lot of people really isn't getting taught how to do, and really what most people is missing: boundary setting, right? So if you're able to set boundaries and identify and basically able to indicate when someone may be manipulating you emotionally, you're able to call them out on it. And not only call them out on it, but tell them, all right, you're gaslighting, or all right, you had this problem last week. I don't feel like the solution that you're saying is going to help you, because the solution that you're saying is something that never helped. So how about I now try and help find a solution? And, you know, just doing certain things where you are now not getting manipulated, but you're actually being effective and efficient in helping that individual. When you can, that's basically how you find a solution to the victim mindset, the victim psychology mentality, right? So what happens when, of course, a person is just so far soaked into being a victim, and it's to the point where it's kind of like, what can I possibly do? How can I help this person, right? And that brings us to our next example, or our next clip of that, which is basically something called energy vampires and how they manipulate.
No energy.
Vampires. What do you think of when you hear the word vampires?
Bloodsucker.
Do you think about Dracula, the Prince of Darkness, or Buff?
And actually do consider that. Like, what do y'all think about when y'all hear vampires? When you hear the word vampires, and what, of course, Hollywood depicted vampires as, like he was just saying, bloodsuckers and those type of things. What is your description of what a vampire is?
The Vampire Slayer. When I hear the word vampires, I think of energy vampires. Energy vampires are those negative people and situations in our lives that try to control our emotions by feeding off of our fears and insecurities. They're all over. We interact with them every single day. So my TED Talk today.
Again, people who feast off of our fears and insecurities. So they look for our fears, they know our insecurities, and they basically take advantage of them. And that's how they manipulate them.
I'm going to be talking about energy vampires, but the most important thing is how do you protect and take care of yourself if attacked? These are the type of people who will not want to take 100% responsibility for their lives. They want you to take responsibility for their decisions. Why? Because if something goes wrong, guess what? They get to blame somebody else. Then you also have that they love to be the victim. And the victim, they want you to be their savior. So if you feel responsible for saving them, they just suck you in to what I call the savior syndrome. Now you feel responsible for them. Now you want to make sure that they succeed. Now you want to make sure that everything goes well with them. They got you.
Very impactful clip.
And of course, it is very impactful and it does make a lot of sense. And my example for this would be, quite honestly, not to be political, but really how the Democratic and Republican parties are to black people, more so the Democratic Party, right? So, we're looking at energy vampires, basically, again, people who knows our weaknesses, knows how to take advantage of us, knows where we have shortcomings, knows basically all the things that trigger us. So knows where what can set us off easily. And they take advantage of that, right? So I can give y'all mad examples from last year, of course, since it was an election year. One major example being all of the police brutality that was pushed by basically every single thing, everybody that had to do with being a Democrat, right? One of the more recent examples is, and it's not saying, of course, that police brutality isn't a thing. It's not saying, of course, that there isn't racism out there, because, I mean, let's just not be an idiot. Of course, those things are definitely real and prevalent. However, when you go about the business of constantly pushing that down someone's throat and you're basically trying to separate people, then that's when it becomes manipulation, right? And obviously the manipulation factor being, hey, you heard it a lot of times last year, right? Vote or die. Vote or die. If you don't vote, we gonna die. Black people, get out there and vote. If you don't vote, the white supremacists gonna take over and they gonna kill everybody. They gonna start hanging people. They gonna start shooting people. The police the police under Trump is gonna be even worse than it was his first 4 years, because now he has total control. It's gonna be this, it's gonna be that. You saw what happened, yada, 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 right? Again, they're doing this because they're pushing the race card solely because we know as black people that is probably the most sensitive thing that we possibly have to us. Because, of course, that's what we've been trained and taught really for the last 400 years, to see everything through a racial lens, right? So, of course, the media, and not just the media, but these people, and of course, this party will continue to press that and continue to take advantage of us with these type of things, of course, being, say, racial. For this specific example, we have other examples with poverty, of course. That's another thing that they attach to black people. I'm talking about the Democratic Party, and they just see us all as poor black people who, need them so we can actually get out of being poor. We need them, again, victim mentality, right? So these are the type of things that energy vampires like that party, in my opinion, basically does. And it's not saying the Republican Party doesn't do it, because, of course, they do the exact same thing. But I think they do it to white people more solely because they don't care about black people. But for the most part, in my view. But, it's just like we have to be great and better at identifying these type of things so we can stop getting taken advantage of, so we can actually get laws made for us, and not just laws, but actually get in a better situation. Because just think about this, as the clip and as that person was just saying, once that energy vampire begins to suck you, they're going to suck you dry until you're dead. You do understand that, right? And basically, if you think about this, why in the world would they stop sucking you dry if you're already in their palm and they're hungry, right? So why in the world would the Democratic Party stop pushing racism, stop pushing black people getting shot? Why would Nancy Pelosi not say that George Floyd was a sacrifice? As she said, one of the wildest things I think I ever heard anybody say regarding the death of someone. right? Basically saying, hey, thank you for being a sacrifice. That's literally what she said. So, of course, that's one of the biggest Democrats out there, Nancy Pelosi. And all I'm saying this is just to say we have to be better at identifying the people that's literally sucking our energy, because why would they want to change if it's bettering them? Why would they want to stop doing these type of things? Why would they want to actually help us if they know that all they got to do is just basically make us into a victim and rile up the machine, basically rile up the race machine and the poor people machine and the we're finally going to help you guys machine in order to get us to vote? Why would they actually help us if they know that's all they got to do is just make empty promises, right? And again, that's what we have to be able to identify in order to actually try to make change. And this was, of course, just a specific example being, of course, the political party system. But there's a whole lot of other examples. I mean, you can look at energy vampires in your parents, in your partners, in your friends, in your school relationships, hell, with your teachers, all types of examples, bro. All types of examples. And one specific example that's not necessarily just pertaining to black people is our very last clip, right? And it talks about rich people.
Now we're saying that it's almost against the quote unquote American dream of you can work hard, bust your ass and get to a certain level. And then somebody that's not working as hard.
And I do apologize. This is actually a clip from the Joe Budden podcast. And one of his guest speakers, Ish, was speaking on basically how rich people are not how rich people are seen as not paying enough in taxes by, of course, victims being people who just aren't as well off. So they see themselves as victims of the rich, basically. And I'll rewind it from the start so you can get a fresh perspective.
Now we're saying that it's almost against the quote unquote American dream of you can work hard, bust your ass and get to a certain level. And then somebody that's not working as hard, not making as many sacrifices as you are, right? They out buying $700-800 hoodies and shit, and I'm over here wearing some Walmart shit, but I'm busting my ass. They are now potentially getting some of my hard-earned money. Like, it's a fine line. It's a real touchy subject. But
I think that everybody should be taxed fairly.
All right.
So, of course, he was just talking about the average worker, of course, and another worker who maybe may have a dream, of course, that being a rich person, right? So the rich person is going out their way to budget, basically living well below their means, of course. And by that, I mean, like he was just saying, buying Walmart shoes, buying very cheap shit. So they don't necessarily look rich, but they're able to reinvest their money and do certain things, like he was saying, bust their ass. Not want to say overwork themselves, but go about the business of putting in more effort and more work. So, of course, later on down the line, he's able to basically have that delayed gratification. So he's able to splurge. He's able to do certain things. He's able to buy his drip or whatever, right? So he's comparing that person, the dreamer, basically, the person who strives for that quote unquote American dream, to the person of the victim mindset. He's comparing it to the other person who is basically a leech, basically wants everything handed to him, wants the minute they get it, the minute they get shit handed, they go about the business of buying $800 shoes, $900 shoes, buying new cars, buying shit that they, for one, don't need, and for two, can't afford, and for three, they don't have a vision to actually propel themselves in the future. So they just looking at the now. And he's comparing those two very similar situations because the person who's the victim will likely say, well, why is that rich person or why is that person who's doing better off than me not paying enough in taxes? Why is he not doing this? Why is he not doing that? When in all actuality, he just knows the system and he's not falling victim to the system. When you on your ass being lazy, don't know shit, not trying to learn the system, and for one, you're not trying to, of course, better your situation because you're not having that vision and you're not, of course, trying to work towards your vision. But two, you're also, again, you just looking and placing blame for your situation. And you see that rich person, you thinking they're the person to blame. When a rich person's looking at you like, why in the hell, if I'm busting my ass, Why should I go about the business of having to go out my way to help and do so much for you when you clearly don't give a fuck? So, you know, that right there is something that's clearly going on a lot today. I mean, if you don't believe me, just look on Twitter for 35 minutes. It ain't even be 35 seconds. Just look on Twitter. You're going to see a lot of that shit. So it's, you know, people just, again, so caught up in what they're told. You know, the rich is bad. The rich is bad. The rich don't do shit for nobody. All the rich care about is themselves. They selfish. And they're not even thinking. They're not even thinking for themselves. They're not thinking, okay, well, how did they get rich? Or how can I do this? Or how can I, you know, at least put up a plan? No, instead, the first thing they do is blame. So all I'm saying is, everybody, let's just step out that. Let's step out that mentality. Let's step out the first thing, that mentality of the first thing we need to do is blame. Step out.
They are now.
My bad. So step out the mentality of the first thing we need to do is blame. Step out the mentality of the first thing that we need to do is, you know, just not look for a solution. And instead, again, we collaborate. We talk to each other and we find a solution together. Or we go about the business of, again, finding a solution on our own, if that's what we need to do. But what we can't do is place blame. What we can't do is talk down on ourselves and begin to, you know, just doubt ourselves and negative affirmations or whatever that's called. And basically just tell ourselves we ain't shit. We can't keep doing that. We can't keep telling ourselves bad things gonna happen and will keep happening. Right? We can't keep putting no effort, you know, and basically seeing things as a failure and then thinking there's no point in trying. We can't keep doing that. And by we, I'm not just talking about the black community. I'm also talking about everybody in general. Everybody. We you know, we just can't keep doing this shit. And with all of that being said, one of the best ways we can actually reverse that is by seeing ourselves as valuable. It's by seeing ourselves as, of course, something that needs to be improved on. And of course, something that just can bring value into the world and value into other people's lives. And when we see that, we stop seeing ourselves as victims, but now seeing ourselves as treasure, as something, of course, that can input instead of being just an output. And if you, of course, would like to be an input to this show, if you would, of course, like to give some treasure to this show along with time and talent, well, we definitely will appreciate that. And I mean, that can be done in a few different ways. Now, of course, first and foremost, I want you to just sit and think, was this show valuable to you? Did you get any value from this, 38 minutes I've been talking so far? So did you get any value from that? And if you did, well, then do me a favor and consider giving some value back. Now, of course, that can be done through many different ways, many different avenues. First and foremost, of course, you can just listen all the way through. That is extremely valuable to us. You can definitely leave some comments. You can leave some concerns. You can leave some feedback. You can tell us what we're doing right. Of course, you know, we love that. You can tell us what we're doing wrong. We still love that. And I mean, you can just, of course, give us that talent by, if you want to provide some clips, if you want to go about the business of putting our attention towards certain things, telling us about certain things, giving us, you know, some updates on certain things. You can definitely do that. And all of that can be done, of course, by clicking the show notes, clicking the details, and just sending us an email. And you can email message us at info@crewclothing.com. Again, that is info@KRUE-clothing.com. And of course, just give us some value back.
Value, and value. Oh, we need that.
And last, but certainly not least, you already know we accepting them donations. So if you want to go about the business of leaving a donation, of course, you can go ahead and click those show notes, click those details. And I mean, we have, of course, a PayPal link that you can leave a donation. We also have a Venmo link. And I mean, donations, man, listen, they can be big, they can be small, $5, $10, $1, $30, $1,000, you hear me? They can come in many different ways. Each and every one is extremely valuable to us as long as that's what you see this show as far as the value. So if you see the show as that, then consider giving it back. And with all of that being said, I definitely do appreciate you listening all the way through, you hear me? This is episode 9 of the ShiftMakers podcast. I am your host, Elder Designer, and we'll be back.